This isn't just a poem, it's a performance, a spectacle of survival. A woman who turns her own trauma into theatre and demands that we watch. Sylvia Plath's Lady Lazarus dares us to look at pain, at death, at resurrection, not through myth, but through a voice which is raw, sarcastic, furious, and disturbingly powerful. Every line carries weight. Every word is chosen like a blade. And in this lecture, we won't rush past a single one. We are going line by line to understand not just what Plath says, but how she says it and why it still burns through time. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I am Dr. Riya Datto, and if you are new to my channel, I give you a very warm welcome. I make videos on English literature, literary theories, and linguistic topics. If that is something of interest to you, consider subscribing. So without further ado, let us begin the lecture. Before we delve into the poem, we need to know about Sylvia Plath a bit. Sylvia Plath was an American novelist, poet, and a short story writer, and she was born in Boston in the year 1932. She was a literary prodigy from a very young age, and she published her first poem at the age of 8 and went on becoming one of the most influential voices of the 20th century. Her work is known for its emotional intensity, confessional tone, and vivid imagery, often drawing from her own struggle with womanhood, mental illness, and identity. Plath's novel The Bell Jar and her final poems in Ariel, including Lady Lazarus, were published around the time of her death by suicide in the year 1963 at the age of 30. Though her survival was short, her legacy was enduring. Her voice continues to speak boldly about pain, power, and survival. So let us look at the poem. I have done it again. 1 year in every 10, I manage it. I have done it again. The word it is possibly the most misunderstood of all words in the poem. Usually, people feel it means dying, that she has managed to commit suicide or attempt suicide again. If you look at the biographical details of her life, you will see the multiple times she attempted to commit suicide. In 1942, she nearly drowned herself at a family beach outing. In 1953, she overdosed herself on sleeping pills. In 1962, she drove her car into the river. And in 1963, she puts her head into the gas oven. So it is very natural for us to think that she is talking about her attempts of suicide when she says the word it. A sort of walking miracle. My skin bright as Nazi lampshade. My right foot a paperweight. My face a featureless fine Jew linen. Look at the walking miracle in the fourth line. Attempting suicide cannot be called a miracle. Then she is not talking about killing herself. She is talking about coming back from the near death experience. We have to understand one thing. Despite the intimate connection between the speaker of the poem and the poet, we will always have to have an objective view of the view that the speaker of the poem is an individual, a separate entity different from the poet. Who is the speaker of this poem? It is obviously Lady Lazarus who is speaking to us. In order to understand the basic idea of the poem, we need to understand who is Lazarus. What is the connection to the idea of coming back from the dead? Well, Lazarus is a biblical figure from the New Testament. He was a close friend of Jesus. After falling seriously ill and dying, he was entombed for 4 days before Jesus arrived. And Jesus then prayed and commanded Lazarus to come out of the tomb, restoring him to life. It is all there in John the 2nd, 43-44. Interestingly, in the New Testament, there is no further description or mention of what Lazarus had been through while he was dead, and not much is said about the event other than Lazarus walks by the command of Jesus, which kind of establishes the divine power of Jesus. So, Lazarus is considered to be a miracle. So, anybody who comes back from the world of dead is a Lazarus figure. So, it's a metaphor. Rather, we can say it's an archetype of rejuvenation, renewal, and rebirth. Now, let's come to the speaker of this poem. The speaker of this poem is Lady Lazarus. Although in Bible Lazarus is essentially a male figure, whoever rises from the dead is essentially a male figure, even if it is Christ or Lazarus. In Plath's poem, we see that it is a woman who has the capability to come back from the dead. Other interesting thing about this individual, Lady Lazarus, is that in Bible, Lazarus could come out of the grave because of Christ's power. But in case of Lady Lazarus, we do not have any superior power, any divine power helping her out. She is saying, I have done it again, I manage it. So there is something like claiming the power in herself, that she has done this act which Lazarus had done through the assistance of God. She has done it all by herself. She has managed to establish this walking miracle. Then she is describing what happens when she comes back. Peel off the napkin, O my enemy. Do I terrify? 1 year in every 10. She has the experience of coming back from the dead. In every decade of her life, she either goes through an attempt to kill herself or faces an accident where she faces almost a near death experience, and then she comes back to life. There are many Holocaust imageries. We all know about the concentration camps, the gas chambers, and what happened there. What happens is that when an act of atrocity is performed with a certain amount of time and it continues, then it becomes a legend. Legends are not fairy tales always. It is always believed that the Nazis had performed several experiments on the bodies of Jews who passed away and who were killed ruthlessly. Sometimes their skins are used to turn into a lampshade. Sometimes their skins were converted into linen. The bones turned into some paperweight. These are the legends surrounded the torture the Jews had to undergo. But the question is, why is she using so many Holocaust imageries? She was not a Jew, but we have seen in the poem Daddy also that the way her father is viewed as the figure of authority, just like the figures of the Nazi Germany. The fact that her mother, who was not from a noble family, but she was actually from the gypsy community. We find that Plath is struggling with how to establish her own identity. There is always a sense of alienation even when she was in America. When she comes to England, she cannot always adjust to the ways people expect her to behave. Her gypsy blood rebelling, perhaps. And in the suffering of the Jews, she could detect very familiar tone that make up her individual suffering. So she used Holocaust imagery throughout her poetry, not only this poem but other poems as well, in order to express the intensity of her own suffering. So whenever she comes back from that experience of being dead, she feels that she is allowed a certain kind of renewal, which is not a glorified thing because it is the similar kind of offering which is offered towards a Jew who is transformed into a lampshade or a paperweight or a linen. So the question is this a real renewal? It is a complete butchering of humanity. Now being transformed into a linen, a lampshade, or a paperweight, a human being is completely robbed of its humanity. That is what is happening every time she is coming back to life. Then she connects the whole story to the story of Lazarus. That when Jesus tells Lazarus to come out, he came out of his grave. His face was all bandaged up with grave cloths, and Jesus asked to remove that bandaged cloths, the grave cloths, and let him go. She is also trying to say that she has come back from the dead. So definitely she has some grave cloth on, giving the idea of an Egyptian mummy who is excavated. Peel out the napkins. Once the napkins are removed, obviously the flesh is eaten by worms. The face is disfigured. So she is saying that she has come back from the dead. She has gone through some amount of disintegration in her flesh. So when she is looked at after coming back from the dead, she is definitely a terrifying figure. The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth, our sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon, soon the flesh, the grave cave, it will be at home to me. If we are dead, we don't have eyes, we have pits. The breath she has after coming back from the dead is not earthy. It is very sour, as if something has already started to ferment. But that is also not going to last for a long time because no matter how many times she comes back from the dead, she is always going to go back to the world of dead. She believes that after coming back from the dead, she is going through the process of being a renewal. How? If one is dead inside the grave, the flesh is going to be eaten away. But in case of Lazarus, when he came out, his flesh got renewed. So whatever was eaten away inside, or what she is calling a grave cave, that flesh will renew on her again. So when we look at it from the perspective of a person who is rescued from a suicide attempt, someone who had been through the spells of depression, then what happens is that a lot of counseling is done and sometimes psychiatric treatments are being conducted. And I, a smiling woman, I am only 30. And like a cat, I have 9 times to die. So there is a kind of enforcing of the idea that you need to smile. Give some result that the counseling is working. Smiling woman. We all have doubt that the smiles are not real but artificial. There is a proverb that cats have 9 lives. She subverts this proverb and makes it about dying 9 times. If you have 9 times to live, you can die 9 times too. She feels that with every decade, she is going through an experience of death. She is 30 now, so she has been going through this experience 3 times. When she was 10, 20, and now when she is 30. So if she is like a cat, she is going to have this experience another 6 times. How does she look at these attempts of self-destruction? She says that this is number 3. What a trash to annihilate each decade. So she says that this is number 3. Does it mean she was trying to kill herself the 3rd time? Then she had this idea that it's only the 3rd time. Did she know that she will be coming back? If a person has the idea that they will come back from the dead, Would you actually call it a suicide? She feels that this is a mandatory exercise on her part where she has to renew herself because 10 years of her life only mean accumulating 10 years of trashy experience. The same kind of expectation is taking out the trash is here. She is taking charge of herself. It is as if she is giving birth to herself. A strange kind of regeneration which is actually seen by the world as an attempt of annihilation. What a million filaments the peanut crunching crowd shoves in to see. When she comes back from the dead, she becomes a spectacle. And it's like she is describing a stage, and her body is like a million filaments. She feels like she has become an object of display like a bright light. Let's talk about the peanut crunching crowd. People who go to things like circus or shows where humans are on display. So she became an object of display because she generated an interest in people to see what does she look like after come back from the dead. This points at the curiosity people have towards any individual who had gone through such horrid spell of depression that they have decided to take their own lives. If they recover or rescued, they become objects of public scrutiny. Sylvia Plath's life has always been an object of public scrutiny. Even now, when she is talked about, it is bound to mention that she had committed suicide, as if it is her identity. The male poets who had committed suicide, nobody talks about their poems and the act of them committing suicide together, like Shelley. But in her case, people always think like this particular poem is written by a woman who had committed suicide, who had no sense of responsibility for her kids. And this kind of judgment is very patriarchal. She had experienced what public scrutiny looks like, what public gaze looks like. It's always like being judged. And how does she describe that experience? Them unwrap me hand and foot. The big strip tease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. I may be skin and bone, nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. They unwrap me. It's like she is getting exposed to the public eyes. There is a stripping aspect in the ancient Sumerian myth of the descent of the goddess Inanna into the underworld. At each of the seven gates, she removed an article of clothing or a piece of jewelry. Some believe that this myth was embodied in the dance of the seven veils of Salome, who danced for King Herod, as mentioned in the New Testament in Matthew 14:6 or Mark 6:21-22. So instead of cowering down, hiding herself in shame, she is displaying herself. In her own recording of this poem with BBC, she used another clause which in most of the versions removed. She says, I may be skin and bone, I may be Japanese. Japanese were considered to be the enemies during the time it was written. Japan also symbolized a kind of otherness. By calling herself Japanese, she wants to say that she is an object of interest and different from the other people. Japanese dolls have a very thin dimension. She is likening herself with Japanese dolls or girls, or the usual convention of Japanese women who are considered to be very thin. However, she wants to establish that you have to come to see how I have changed now that I am back from the dead. But I am the same person coming back. Let's read on. Nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened, I was 10. It was an accident. The second time, I meant to last it out and not come back at all. I rocked shut as a seashell. They had to call and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. So she nearly drowned when she was 10. She was swimming out to the sea. Many thought that it was an attempted suicide, but it was also a time she was going through dark, sorrowful period of her life because her father, who was a huge influence on her, was dead when she was just 8 years old. But it is not certain whether it was an attempted suicide. She claims it to be an accident. And the second time means she was 20. This is a direct reference when she swallowed some sleeping pills when she was in college and she shut herself up in a wardrobe. She was rescued. She said that she did not want to come back. So it was a deliberate act on her part. When she shut herself in the closet, she was trying to protect herself from the rescuers. The imagery she used here. She was imagining herself to be locked up as an oyster inside the closet so much convincingly that now she is dead and the worms have started to eat her. The worms are like pearls sometimes because she is like an oyster. So, when the rescuers came, they had to pick the worms out in order to rescue her. The ironical twist here is that dying is not really an art. What attracts the peanut crunching crowd that she had been reborn. Had she been dead, nobody would really care. People are so interested because she is keeping on coming back. So, coming back to life, not dying, is an art. The act of dying and coming back serves as a way to affirm existence, making it feel more real than life itself. Let's look at the poem. Dying is an art. Like everything else, I do it exceptionally well. I do it feels like hell. I do it so it feels like real. I guess you could say I have a call. As I mentioned, that dying is not actually an art, coming back to life is an art. So, what is this call? This call is like an inner motivation. Is she destined to attempt suicide, or that is her call? Does it mean that? This is sounding more and more grim and depressive, just like the way she was feeling at the moment. Dying is not a problem. She is saying dying is fine. The problem is when you have to come back and become the object of show. She says, it's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical comeback in broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute, amused shout, a miracle. That knocks me out. So we see that she does not mind dying. She hates it when she comes back to spotlight, the same place, the same face, the same brute. If the sentence is rephrased, it will make more sense. The theatrical comeback in the broad day that knocks me out. What is theatrical comeback? The comeback to be on the spotlight. She is attempting to escape a life and she is brought back to the very same life and the people, and they shout in the very same amused tone, a miracle. And she is tired of it. Then she says, there is a charge for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the hearing of my heart. It really goes. Then she says that you are trying to poke at me, be curious about me, analyze me. Okay, you have to pay now. There is a charge. So pain is turned into a commodity. If the misfortunes are so horrible, let's get paid for it. When Christ resurrected, non-believers or doubtful people wanted to touch and check if Christ still had marks on his palms, the marks of crucifixion. Even Christ was not spared this kind of scrutiny. So, how can Lady Lazarus dream that she can be spared? But when she is put up on display, who is going to get the charge? Will she get the benefit? Will she get anything in return? Or people like the psychiatrists, the caregivers will reap the benefit? Like what happens in the circus? Like the producers and directors, they get paid. And there is a charge, a very large charge for a word or a touch or a bit of blood or a piece of my hair or my clothes. So, so her doctor, so her enemy. When you address someone as her, it refers to either Mr. or Sir or Lord in German. So if she is comparing herself to the Jew in suffering, any German entity is definitely an antagonistic figure. So for her, her doctor is an antagonist, her enemy. So now she is put up on display, and because of the display, people around her are earning. She becomes like a very valuable product, the opus for the most important or valuable goods available for display. She says, I am your opus, I am your valuable, the pure gold baby that melts to a shriek. I turn and burn. I do not think I underestimate your great concern. She knows that the concern people are showing, the near ones, when she is talking about a doctor and referring to a person as an enemy, she might actually mean her spouse. She knows that their concerns are very artificial and their concerns are result of some self-interest. They are gaining something out of her suffering. So she says, do not think I underestimate you. She feels while she is alive under that public gaze, under that scrutiny, she is burning. When she is burning, she is turning into ash. Let's look at the poem. She says, ash, ash, you poke and stir, flesh, bone, there is nothing there. A cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling. So when she is burning and turning into ash in the same ways the hapless Jews were turning into ash. And in those cremation after they were brutally murdered in the concentration camp. So sometimes some gold ring are found or a cake of soap or something. So again this urban legend goes like after the Jews were cremated, the Nazis would poke through their remnants to get some gold tooth or some ring, anything valuable. So when Jews would be sent to the gas chambers, they would be given community bath. They would be handed a cake of soap. Hence, sometimes a cake of soap would be found among the debris of the dead bodies. Even more horrible urban legend says the fat of the dead Jews were used to manufacture soap. She is imagining herself as one of those Jews. She is feeling violated. She is saying, her God, her Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. So she is reacting to that poking. She knows that there is no God for her, no devil for her. Both God and devil are men. The idea of both God and devil is indicted to male authorship indistinguishable. In her eyes, both are equally tyrannous. She says, beware, beware. And this reminds us of Coleridge's Madman in Kubla Khan. The poet, the inspired poet who has flashing eyes, floating hair, around whom people are circling in holy dread. Is she also someone who is similar to that inspired mad person in Coleridge's poem? I have the poem Kubla Khan explained already uploaded in my channel. If you have not checked that out, I will give the link in the description below. So she may share her name with Lazarus. Lazarus was a character who was a passive recipient of a call. In the case of Lady Lazarus, her coming back from dead is like Phoenix and not like actual Lazarus who is passive. What does a phoenix do? The legend goes like this, that a phoenix, when it grows old or needs renewal, it simply turns into flames, dies, and out of those ashes, a new phoenix is born. Phoenix is supposed to have red feathers. Sylvia Plath had red hair. The last sentence is a riddle. I eat men as air. It can be read in two ways. I eat men like I eat air. But we do not eat air. We drink water, we eat food. Or it can be read as I eat men who are like air. I eat those men who are weightless, who carry no significance, who carry no worth for me, full of pomp, full of airs. Eat here means destroy. She does not care for men who are non substantial. So she becomes this avenging female figure whose primary motivation is to destroy male authority. Death offers her this possibility of control. Her life means absolute absence of control. It is only the moment of death that makes her so powerful, because during that moment she can come back, she can assert herself, she can challenge every authority that has ever threatened her. She wrote this poem in October 1962, a few months before her suicide. She died by gas poisoning. Throughout her life, she was criticized that she has no right to use Nazi imagery, Nazi Holocaust imagery, as she was not a Jew. Perhaps her attempt was to legitimize the range of Holocaust imageries she has used. For her, the domestic space, her own home, was no better than a concentration camp. She is going to be a challenge. She is going to assert her ego. Usually, we in American poetry, we have this kind of assertion of the ego in the writings of Walt Whitman or Emerson. They are the idea of the American ego, the fighting spirit. America is all about challenging the norms of hierarchy, divine godhead. Then it is always controversially a male domain. Plath does not become a female assertive self, but she goes beyond gender. She is the phoenix figure, and the phoenix is androgynous. Yes, she is Lady Lazarus, essentially woman, but at heart, she is Phoenix. She went through Phoenix like resurrection. So she challenges the stereotypes of gender as well. She breaks free from the stereotypes that are enforced upon her. So that is the poem Lady Lazarus by Sylvia Plath. I hope that this lecture is helpful to you. If you like this lecture, give it a thumbs up, and for more videos like this, keep an eye on my channel. Until next time, thank you. Bye.